Mark Rogers TV breaking down as many positional units as we can possibly get to before the opening week. We bring in Joey Weaver from the Rumble seat, who has knocked out every unit on the field, and we even get to special teams. Let's not forget about the special teams. Football coaches will remind us from time to time it's a third of the game. So, Joey, you got a place kicker back, you got a punter back, and then you're really going to have to speculate after that. So let's start with place kicking, and Harrison Butker on the surface, 7 for 11, not impressive. Does have a ton of experience coming into a senior year as he's kicked since his freshman campaign, 28 of 43 total. So he's kicked better in the past, at least. Again, we're not taking distance into consideration here, but your thoughts about his abilities?
Yeah, he had a rough game against Notre Dame early on in the year and then really cleaned it up after that. He's a guy who does have a big leg. A lot of Tech fans will remember he made a huge 53-yard field goal to send the Georgia game to overtime in 2014. He's got some range, got some distance, and in 2014 he had some accuracy issues for whatever reason between the 30 and the 39-yard field goals. If it was a field goal of more than 29 yards and under 40, for some reason he had major issues, but other than that he was about automatic. So Butker's got a big leg. He's made some big kicks. He made a couple of huge ones against Florida State that kept the team in the game late last year. So a guy that a lot of Tech fans are really excited to see him coming back for his senior campaign, and hopefully he can kind of clear up some of the issues he's had at times over the last couple of years to really put together a strong campaign as he looks maybe to go into the NFL for the draft next year.
Okay, so again, I'm going to throw out the numbers, and they're not necessarily proven depending on the style of punting and the situation. So Ryan Rodwell on the surface on 46 kicks coming into a senior year, 39-yard average, not necessarily what you see across the board when you see guys kicking in the 43 to 45-yard range. So your thoughts about Rodwell?
Rodwell, yeah, also a senior coming back, a guy who has had a couple issues at times, has been fairly consistent, but especially you start talking about like he had a couple issues last year fielding snaps, and it seemed to be a bit of a mental thing, maybe the yips, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully, again, you see him kind of get squared away. He's had some ups and downs throughout college, but been fairly consistent. Seems to do a pretty good job when they start getting around midfield and being able to kind of pin opponents fairly deep. But again, we don't really know. He's got all the physical tools. It's a matter of kind of whether he can put it together mentally, I think, on whether he's a guy that might have some NFL potential as well. But a guy who's been with this Georgia Tech team for several years now, and a guy that hopefully, again, you can clear up some issues that he's had at times to really put together a strong final campaign.
Yeah, he's punted 91 times in his career, so he's been around, and I know that pretty much equals what a Wake Forest punter gets in one campaign, but still he's been punting since his freshman campaign. Look at the return game, and it's wide open. So Jamal Golden's gone. He wasn't extremely explosive based on the numbers, but dependable. 18 kick returns, 16 punt returns, and then after that, Marcus Marshall's probably the only guy that you have coming back who has experience in the return game.
Yeah, Jamal Golden was a real staple for this team in the return spots for the last 3 years. In 2013, he ran back a kickoff for a touchdown against BYU in October, and that was the first time in nearly 15 years that Georgia Tech had run a kickoff back for a touchdown. He followed that up by running another one back, I believe, 2 games later. So a guy who has provided a lot of bright moments, both in the kickoff and the punt return game, and a guy that you hate to see go. And like you mentioned, you've got Marcus Marshall coming back. He was a true freshman last year, be back. A lot of really good physical tools, very good top-end speed, some pretty good physicality in there as well. He figures to factor in at least on kickoff returns. And then after that, we're really not sure what we're going to get. I think Quay Searcy maybe figures into that a little bit, maybe especially at the punt return spot. Mikel Lance Davis got a little bit of work at kickoff returns last year. He's a potential guy to look at. Nathan Cottrell was a guy in high school who did extremely well with kickoff returns. He was injured all of last year, but if not, he would have probably played quite a bit. He comes back. He's got unbelievable speed that he can bring. So if he can kind of get past the first layer, it's going to be tough to run him down from behind. Other than that, maybe J.J. Green, the transfer from Georgia, he starts playing this year. You might also see him in the return game. So kind of in this post Jamal Golden era, it's a little bit of the Jackets trying to figure out, who's the next guy that's going to be creating some of these big plays in the return game, hopefully, between both kickoffs and punts.
Yeah, I was going through Golden's game log, going all the way back to 2011, and like you say, he's been the guy. He's got like 120 returns between punts and kickoffs, and had that 3-week stretch against BYU, and then it was North Carolina in a big win a couple of weeks later that he had the kickoff return go all the way for 6. So it's wide open in the return game for Georgia Tech. They've got their punter, they got their place kicker back, who have been fairly dependable the last few years. So Joey Weaver helping us out on Georgia Tech special teams from the Rumble seat.